Let's continue working on the zombie magnet collection, where we are sculpting as well as detail painting these awesome little refrigerator magnets. Alright, so as you can see here, I've got two of these casted out of Smooth Cast 320, and that is an off-white. We also have the other ones that we've already created in this overall series. You can check these out in time-lapse as well as, if you're a member, in real time. Those are real-time, full-on painting tutorials. Now this first one that we looked at is a zombie finger, super cool, nice and green colored, and we're going to kind of paint this ear to match it. Here's also the eyeball, also removed with the eye nerve, and of course we gave that little bit of a bloodshot look with some UV resin just to give that nice glazed eye look. Now the overall paint palette scheme that we're going to use for this particular ear is going to match up with the finger. So it's going to be very simplistic overall, and we're just going to enjoy the process. Now again, this is the time-lapse version of this. You'll be able to check out a full-length video as well, and that is a much more slowed down painting process, and you can see it in much greater detail. We're going to begin by applying some just general shadow and shades using a little bit of Pain Gray. I decided to go with Pain Gray instead of just a straight up ivory black, just to give it a little bit more of a blue shade. A lot of this will get kind of overlaid with some more colors as we build up those layers. Go ahead along the back of the ear as well, just kind of paint that out. Again, it does have the magnets inset into the item during the casting process, which also makes it more difficult for like any kind of children or little youngins to get those in their mouths and swallow them. If somebody purchases the magnets from me, all of my magnets are hidden away, out of sight, out of mind. Now you can see I'm also using a little bit of burnt umber here. I decided to go with just that burnt umber, which is a little bit more of a red tone, a little bit lighter color than the existing like raw umber, which is more of that like dark brown type of look. It's not as dark as say a Van Dyke brown, but it's got a lot of tinge to it. I just like the red coloring that this gives us over that white base. We're going to immediately jump into the sap green here. Now this is going to be the majority of the color for the entire ear here, and again, as you can see in the background, we do have that finger, which we've already painted out in the overall same kind of color theme. So if somebody were to order like a whole kit of these, then you know they can decide what color of skin they would like, whether that would be like a yellow ochre or maybe like a paled out white, maybe something even more nasty and decayed. We're kind of keeping the overall goreness of these a little, just toned down a little bit, so they're just not so too overpowering. So like you don't see any kind of maggots or anything like that on these. They're just kind of simplistic and just fun to paint. We do have a little bit of chew marks here, so you can see I'm just using the side of the brush there with that existing sap green just to kind of make sure I get over a little bit of that skin texture between those bite marks. We're going to come in with a little bit of alizarin crimson here, and we're going to go ahead and color in a little bit of the bite streaks. That's where somebody would take a bite out of it and they would have pulled the meat away, leaving these little striations of existing skin, green skin texture behind. Kind of roll that over to the back end of the magnet there, making sure we get some of that color on the other side. And we're also going to paint the side of it, so that's where like the ear would have been like torn away from the zombie's, the side of his head, and this would be like the torn skin effect. And you can notice that there's not a lot of like extra meat and skin hanging off of the magnet. I decided to keep it all nice, neat, and tight. That also way it can have like just a very strong casting, and it's not very loosely weakened because there's a lot of smooth on. A smooth cast, kind of like cascading and pushing away from the actual main body of the item. We don't want any of those little thin pieces that can be at risk of breaking in the future. Kind of blending in a little bit of that red color there, and then we're going to blend in a little bit of that sap green around the outside edges just to blend them together in a nice Mod Podge of red and greens. Just kind of detailing it here, making sure that that green kind of cascades around the outside edges of that red. Again, this is the back of the magnet, so it's not as much of a priority as say like the front, where it's just going to be always visible when it's up on like the refrigerator or like magnetized to something, you know. For all I know, somebody could be putting it in the dash of their car or something like that. We're going to get a little bit of yellow ochre out here, and we're going to go ahead and start to give it a little bit of dry brushing here, just over the highlights. I'm using this as a highlight layer, so we're just going to use it as a dry brush highlight, just to kind of go over some of those little sculpted meat torn textures, as well as over the edges of the cartilage of the ear. And then we're going to immediately get out some, I believe this is I'm wanting to say it's a sepia. Yeah, it's a sepia wash, and we're going to introduce a little bit of that as pure sepia into this, and then we'll water it down just a little bit, and we're going to let this settle into all those nooks and crannies that sculpted into the original sculpture. This is really going to bring a lot of detail to the overall depth of the item. But don't worry, we're not done yet. We're only halfway through the video, guys. If you've liked this portion of the video so far, up to this point, make sure you like and subscribe. It really does mean the world to me, guys, and I look forward to making even more of these in the near future. As we grow here on YouTube, of course, we're making more and more intense projects. I know that this is kind of a small item that we're painting here, but we do some larger styles of art as well. So you can always check those out. We're going to move into a crimson here. So we're starting to go into a different layer here. We're going to be working a little bit of crimson, and we're also going to work in a little bit of that yellow ochre into that crimson, just to give it a nice little like nasty yellow milky color. But it's a little bit less of that here. I'm also making sure that I'll blend a little bit of that red with the existing black inside the ear canal, so that way it just feels like it's very deep and dark inside the ear, whereas the blood just kind of gets fresher as it comes out of the ear and starts to drip down the edge of the ear canal. Using the dry brushing technique here just to go over the high raised edges of the torn meat textures here, making sure to give a lot of detail to those little bite marks as well. We want to make sure that they stand out quite a bit. We're just bringing that dripping blood kind of texture around the bottom of the item there. I want to make sure that if like the magnet were like high up on the refrigerator, then anybody looking at it from a lower stance, like a child or anybody like that, would be able to see those details kind of rolling onto the back of the item there. I could have also just left the back of the magnet completely blacked out, and I might do that in the future, just so that it brings a lot more like detail and kind of contrast to the front of the item. But for now, it's okay. We're also going to go ahead and bring a little bit of blood splatter up to the top of the ear cartilage here. I just want to make sure that it has a nice variation in color there, just so it's not just too much green, right? It's okay to have a lot of that greenery around the outside edges of the cartilage, but I just want to make sure that it has a little bit of variation. And how can you not have like an ear ripped off a zombie and not have some blood splatter somewhere? So that's what we're kind of bringing in there. I'm also mixing up a little bit of sap green and yellow ochre there, and that's going to kind of blend in just some little highlights here and there, just kind of nitpicking over some colors over the high raised edges. Putting a little bit of that brown in some of these nooks and crannies here, and I'm just kind of detailing it, just being very nitpicky of where those colors are laying in. Now we're going to work into our last red here, and this is a cadmium red hue. This is all Winsor & Newton paints here, Winsor & Newton Galleria paints from the tubes. So we're not doing a ton of color mixing here. We're just kind of keeping colors very simplistic, very easy. So if you wanted to paint this overall color theme, all you need is maybe 4 or 5 different colors, and you're rocking and rolling. You can probably even get away with just having one red, as long as you just kind of like thin it out and just make it as light colored as possible. And you can do that by just simply adding a little bit of water to that. And if you want to darken them up, you just add a little bit of brown or even just a little bit of that black color, and then you're good to go. Applying a little bit of that yellow ochre to the interior of the ear there. Who doesn't have a cankered, nasty ear in there? You know, if a zombie doesn't clean their ears with Q-tips, we can't have no clean ears on a zombie. What are you talking about? Looking pretty good, guys. I'm really happy with how it's turning out so far. And this is at the point now where I just got to give it some time and let it completely dry out. And then we're going to go ahead and hit it with a clear coat of 2 times Rust-Oleum. Alright, you guys, here is this awesome little green zombie ear. And as you can see there, we do have the red and green tone on the back. That's actually a little bit tacky there. I must not have waited long enough before I spray painted that with a clear coat. That's my fault. I probably just rushed it too much, and I needed to wait a little bit longer for that paint to fully cure up. I could always just like slice that off and then just redo the color, or just paint it black and clear coat it again. So I'm not really worried about it, just because it's just a display piece. But as you can see here, the paint theme of the green skin tone just turns out absolutely great. And then the accents of the red layers over the existing sculpted texture that we had sculpted into those bite marks and the tearaway marks. And not just that, just the blood splatter around the top right of the ear, and also the blood coming out of the ear canal there. Just really fun, really cool. Maybe in the future I'll kind of drill out the interior of the ear canal and make it look like the entire ear canal was ripped out as well, or something fun like that. But I'm really happy with the overall contrast of the red against the green skin. Now, if you want one of these as a paintable or as a fully painted magnet ready for your refrigerator, make sure you check out my Etsy shop. Like and subscribe, guys, and make sure you check out the rest of the videos under the painting or magnet playlist.